Hello once again, Lightbringers. It has been a journey. Thank you very much for going on it with us. We are coming down to the end. We've got just over 2 days left, and today's live stream will be our last live stream. We're going to be talking about a number of things, some of which I imagine you can guess. We're going to go back and talk about a few of the things we've promised to talk about in past live streams. And of course, we're going to make one more big reveal before we get to the all in today. As always, today I have with me Nick and Marco, the producer and the designer on the games. Nick and Marco, thanks for joining. Welcome. We're going to talk about a few things first. We've mentioned this before. Last time we talked about the TTS mod, we said, hey, if you want to look at the cards, go to the TTS mod. We shouldn't have done that because we should show you right here. And we're going to show you some of the loot today because the loot is some of the most exciting things for me about this game, in addition to the variable player powers or hero classes. But this is some of the loot that you're going to find in Shadowreach. We're starting with some of the stuff that some of the mobs can drop. Marco, what can you tell us about some of these things? They all look very slender, at least the three that we chose here today.
Yeah, so there are mob weapons that we have this deck of mob cards that they are all weapons, and when you spawn a mob, they come with this weapon. And one thing this is one of the things that I really like since the first Master Darkness, and we adapted for Master Darkness Hellscape. And getting to get the loot, the weapon that the mob was using against you to fight against them, it's really cool. And what we did is that we decided to have the exact weapon from the illustration of the mobs. So you can see the dwarves there, they have the sturdy hammer in the illustration, and you have the sturdy hammer that you can grab and fight with. You also have the heavy club from the bugbear and stuff like that, Yeah.
That's very cool.
I find this really cool.
Has that always been the case in all Massive Darknesses where we tied it to so close?
At least like that? In Hellscape, we did that, and we're doing it again in Shadowreach. Yes.
That was lost on me. I'm glad you pointed it out. That is really cool. I have to say, too, as I play the game, if I see any loot whatsoever, especially if it's a weapon, I look down there and I check to see if there's an orange die involved. I see there's a couple orange die here. But whenever you see that, if you've never played, you have to always look up and look at the description too, because there's always or oftentimes something generally that will balance that out. I'm looking at the heavy club there. It looks like you have to roll an extra mob die when you're using that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very cool.
It's a rare item with a orange dice, but you have this drawback for the enemy. Yes.
Cool. So let's move on to the next ones. These are more of the general loots that you're going to find. We've got plenty really, really exciting ones here. What can you tell us about some of these? I already see poison involved in some of them.
Yeah, those come in the treasure cards, the regular treasure that you find in the dungeon. And they usually go to our other slots, not on weapons. We also have some weapons, of course, but you also have the armor, the legs, the miscellaneous items like rings and stuff like that. And yeah, we had to have the new conditions on the card. So, for example, the fungal armor, when you're in combat with an enemy, you poison them. And you have the thunder boots that you can stun other enemies around you. Yeah, it's so I know we had to use the new conditions as well.
When you're adding conditions like that, particularly poison, I know Alex was a big fan of poisoning the players, or at least the heroes in the game, not the actual players. Is it also him that drives sort of using it offensively here too, or is that you balancing him out in the design process?
It's more like a balance, like he likes to give poisons to heroes. Okay, so we can also poison the monsters. It's a balance that we make. One of my favorite from these new items is the Twilight Greaves that you can see on the right, because it allows you to equip a melee weapon, two-handed melee weapon as a one-handed melee weapon. That's one of the strongest effects, because you can use a two-handed and a one-handed weapon at the same time. I really like those kind of effects.
That is huge. Why, man, that's a lot of damage that can be dealt with that. That's awesome. And do you have off the top of your head, how many loot cards are we looking at in all? At least in the base game, since we haven't really talked about the all.
I think we have around 50 cards per deck, so it's a lot. I guess like 200, something like
Yeah,
that.
that is amazing too. Especially if you're watching this and you probably have played Massive Darkness, Hellscape. There's so many already. Like I cannot wait to have just this incredible collection of all this loot. I mean, so much about what the game is about. But we want to take a look at those. Let's take a look at the next slide. This is a really special set of loot. So this is the Red Dragon set, which is a new set in this campaign. Can you tell us a little bit about this? I see that we've strategically hidden a lot of the descriptions, so I don't know if that's because we want to keep it a surprise, but what can you share?
Okay, so we had the Shadowband set on Hellscape, which is a set that you can, if you have some parts of the set, you get a special effect. So if you have 2 parts, you get a small effect. If you have 4 parts, you have a bigger effect. And for this one, we decided we wanted to make a set as well. So we thought, what kind of flavor can we give to this set? And we thought, why not a classic dragon scale set? Like this is classic fantasy. Everyone likes dragons. So we decided to make it about a dragon, and the effects are all related to putting fire on enemies and things like that a dragon would do. And one thing that's important to say about this set, all the weapons, the Head Dragon Axe, Head Dragon Bow, and Head Dragon Rod, they are not specific to classes. This was something we have done in Hellscape, but now they're generic. Any class can use, so it's easier to complete the set.
That's nice. I appreciate that. It's always great to find a set piece, but when you find a set piece that's for someone else at the table, it's a little bittersweet when you find that. But it is all about teamwork. And I do want to say, if you're watching out there, you might be thinking, well, why did they choose the Red Dragon set? And I'm just going to say that as we take a look at this final trailer as we roll into the last 2 days. And that is your first look at a few things there. One, this most recent Creatures of Legend expansion, but also a glimpse at the all-in that we're going to be talking about here shortly. And not to take anything away from this beautiful, beautiful dragon miniature, but eagle-eyed viewers may have seen some other miniatures there too. Before we get to those, we do want to talk in general about what we wanted to try to do with this. I know we've seen some comments on the campaign recently, people saying, oh, fingers crossed for some sort of boss for the final week here. And I think we've taken the concept of a boss and built this entire expansion around it. What can you tell us about this, Marco?
Yeah, so when we started this new setting with classic fantasy, we thought, what can we do that's like legendary? Like, if you think about classic fantasy, what you think about, and it's a dragon, right? So we had to make this boss, this epic battle against a red dragon, and that's it. That's what this boss is about, fighting a big dragon.
It's effectively one quest that leads up to this red dragon, but my question is this: did the red dragon come before the red dragon set, or vice versa?
Yeah, so yeah, you can use the red dragon set against the red dragon. Yeah,
it's a lot of fire.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at some of what's inside this. First, you're going to see some tiles and some tokens that we'll talk about in a second. The tiles and the tokens. Can we take a look at that? So these are, how many tiles are we, is this the extent of the tiles in this expansion?
We have 4.
Four tiles. And then those tokens there, what can you
lava
tease
tokens.
us? Lava? Can you tease us a little bit about those before we get to the actual red dragon?
Okay, so we have these double-sided tiles, and in one side you have this old dwarven ruins that's a fortress that we're exploring, and it's the first part of the quest. You know, you have to find the correct rooms in a certain order, and when you find the rooms, you discover which door you must go through to reach the dragon's lair. So it's interesting because every time you play this scenario, the door will be in a different spot because of you find the rooms in a different order. And when after you pass through the door, you flip over the tiles and set up the dragon's lair. And there's this epic battle against the dragon. Then it comes in play. And in the dragon lair, there's a lava river, and you even have the bridge from Massive Darkness that placed there in the lava river, so you can go through to the other side without having to step on lava, you know. And the fire, and then the dragon, when he spits fire, he places lava tokens on the board, so he changes around the board how it's set up, you know.
All right. Well, before we get into too many details about the red dragon, let's take a look at some of the other creatures of legend that we have in here. This next one is one of the coolest ones. If you've been looking for extra special miniatures, these next ones will do it for you. Let's take a look. We've got the Oozes. These miniatures are awesome, but the whole concept is really cool. And if you can't see, these are actually the shapes of dice, which is really, really awesome. But Marco, what can you tell us about how these things work and how they operate differently?
Yeah, so in this box we try to make like to put classic tropes of enemies, you know, and the uses are one of the classic enemies that they are there in the dungeon when they steal your items and stuff like that. So how they work in Massive Darkness? When the Roman monster spawns, he goes after you like a regular Roman monster, and when you kill him, it actually divides into a mob. So if you kill him and now a mob spawns in its space, and you have to deal with the mob now. And now after you defeat the mob, you place the token in the darkness track, and when it reaches the token, the Roman monster comes back. So if you place him in the game, there's this mini game of fighting him over and over again, you know, because he's always spawning and the mob spawns, and it's a lot of ooze. And of course, the ability that he has is that when you attack him, he might break your weapons. He might absorb and consume your weapons or your items. So you have to have like spare items so you can actually
Oh, wow. Now, will you
deal with that.
do you get them back by chance when you defeat him?
No, this is one of the only effects that destroy the items in Massive Darkness. But they have extra loot to compensate that. But yeah, you have to be very careful.
Hopefully you get something better in return after you defeat him. Nick, did you by chance have a miniature to show here? Now, I do want to point out, as we're showing this, these miniatures for these in particular, the ones we're about to show are not the final one. Obviously, these are built off the same molds, but we wanted to give you a nice close-up look at the detail in some of these miniatures so you can also appreciate the shape of this thing. So what different dice do we have represented by the Oozes?
Okay, so we have the D20, the D6, and the D4. So there's a conscious choice that we wanted, you know, kind of a cheeky little nod to tabletop RPGs.
Yes.
And then we deliberately made it, you know, smaller one each time. So yeah.
Just a small correction, it's a D12, not a D20. But yeah.
Oh, whoops. So I'm gonna swap the die. I'm gonna swap the miniatures now.
Yeah, Marco, thanks for jumping in there. I'm sure everyone in the comments was pointing that out as well. Like, no, that's a D12.
Whoops.
Marco is not one of the miniatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are really cool, and I cannot wait to see them in their final form. I have to ask, and this is more for the comments, players out there. I know you're supposed to do everything random, but I can tell you I've done this. When you want to face something that you haven't faced in a scenario, you ever put something like this towards the top of the deck so that you can make sure and get it out there and interact with it? I know that we did some stuff in the Sunken Temple expansion to sort of encourage the presence of some of those. Do we see anything like that mechanically, Marco, with anything else?
Yes. So for this monster specifically, we're thinking about like having this token on the darkness track that spawns in. So if you want to play with this kind of module, the Oozes, you can always see him in play, you know. Of course, you can just randomly shuffle them, but if you want to put them into play, there's this possibility, you know, for both of the monsters in this box. That's a teaser. We're going to talk about the other one as well.
And that one there is the smallest of the die, the beloved four-sided die. I think
this one is so cute.
it is. It's adorable. It actually makes me like a four-sided die. I'm not a giant fan of the four-sided die in general, but this one, it's absolutely awesome. But those are the Oozes. Anything else to share about the Oozes before we move on to the next? Because the next ones are also uniquely special.
Yeah, you can go to the next one.
Yeah, these next ones, well, I'll let everyone watching figure out what this is inspired by, but it's the false chest.
Yeah, so you have this false chest. During the setup of the game, you get some of the loot tokens, the false loot tokens, you can see it on the right corner, and you mix them with the regular loot tokens that will be in the scenario. So when you open a door and you are setting up the treasures from the back, you flip the loot token, and if it's a mimic, if it's a false chest, it appears there.
Yeah,
so yeah, that's it. There's always the possibility of the loot that we're looking for is actually a monster.
Yeah, the fact that this is now a thing in the game is awesome, and I love the way it works with the loot tokens. This is not just the simple additional mob or anything like that, but
Yeah,
the way these will pop out is incredibly thematic. I see. Is it poison again that I see on this one too, Marco?
Yeah, it also has poison instant.
I'm telling you, I might home rule poison out of the game for myself. I'm kidding. And if you, there, get a good look at it. Yeah, that is so awesome. Yeah, if you're one of those people that have been in the comments on the campaign the last couple days asking for like even cooler miniatures, I hope we're paying that off in spades with what we've got in this. And you haven't seen everything yet, because the next one kind of carries this theme along and brings it even closer to what we do in Massive Darkness, I think. And that's the false door. So tell us, it's going to work kind of similarly, but Marco, tell us how this one works.
Yeah, it's very similar to the loot ones. So the false door, you have these false door tokens that on the other side, they are actually false doors. And you, at the start of the game, you mix them with the regular door tokens. And when you open a door, it could be a monster, you know, and you spawn it immediately in your space. And of course, you have to replace the regular door in the original space. And yes, there's always the possibility of opening a door and a monster attacking immediately, you know?
Yeah, even more danger behind every single door, in addition to whatever is on the door card. Can you tell us a little bit about both of these? Once they're on the table, how do they interact with the players? Is it somewhat similar, or does the door, which one's more fierce? Which one should we fear more than the other?
I believe the doors are more, because they spawn right into your zone and attack you, you know? And so they are more threatening, you know? But both of them are, because they are extra monsters that you are not expecting from a chamber, you know? So it's always a tense moment when you open a door and there's an extra roaming monster there waiting for you. So it goes into the theme of making the game a bit harder, you know, if you want to add this to your game, and have these extra surprise moments, it's possible now.
Yeah, I love it. And I think I know the answer to this, but all of these things that we're looking at here, including the oozes, but the doors and the chests, those can be used and utilized in any scenario, right? Or is it specific to
Any
this?
scenario, you can use it in the
Yeah.
campaign, you can use it in one shots, everywhere.
Yeah, the fact that we're adding more and almost everything we add can be used across the board, it, like, honestly, as a gamer myself, it breathes so much more life into things. And I love to see some of the things that we're doing with the scenarios themselves. Like this quest in this box alone is, while one quest, it sounds like there's a lot of variable things going on to make it incredibly replayable when you compare it to a lot of other quests, I think. All right, the time has come. Those were some of the mobs that we've been looking at. The next one is the red dragon, the monster boss. Let's take a look at this, and we're going to go into some detail. Marco already alluded to some of the details of how it works, but there's the red dragon. That's how big it is. I think we got that to scale. Would you say, Nick and Marco, is that somewhat accurate scale comparison?
Yeah.
But what can you tell us about the red dragon?
So as I was saying, this is an epic quest with two parts. It was designed by Rodrigo Soneso and Felipe Galeno that were here on the previous live. And they did an amazing work of like having these first parts being an exploration in the Dwarven fortress where you are looking for the rooms, and when you find them in the correct order, you find which door you have to pass through. And once you go to the dragon's lair, you set up the dragon barrel, and now you fight the dragon. You know, it's a boss fight with all things that we would expect from a dragon boss fight. You know, he moves around, he occupies 4 spaces on the board, and you can't go into its zones, right? And he moves around. He has like one of his patterns is that he flies and moves to another space, so you have to go there and hit him. And of course, he also spits fire and lava on the board. So he places these lava tokens, and when you step on a lava token, you of course you get fire.
Yeah, can we take a look at the next slide, because I think we actually have some illustrations to show how some of that works in terms of.
Okay, so there's another.
Yeah, go ahead.
Element in the dragon's lair, those statues that gets you cover from the attacks from the dragon. So depending on where the dragon is on the board, you might go behind the statue to get cover from its attack. If you don't have this, he will attack you and place a lava token in your space. So yeah, you have a lot of mobility, and you have to be very tactical when fighting against him, because he moves around and you have these elements on the board that you want to interact with. So it's very different from other boss fights that we made in the past.
Yeah, that is awesome.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, the whole concept of introducing cover in this boss fight, I can't wait to see if we embrace that in the future, because the idea of running and hiding behind things as you're dealing with something like this on the table is really, really awesome. We have one
very cinematic, right? Like they have these moments where you're being attacked and you get cover.
I think we have one more slide showing the lava token too that you'd mentioned. So once he spits fire, it's not over. You have to get out of dodge effectively.
Exactly. So now there's a lava there. The lava goes out. You flip it to the lava, less lava side, and then it goes out on the board as the round passes. But yeah, he places lava tokens on the board. There's this lava river that you can see that you can only pass through without taking fire through the breach. Of course, if you want, you can go through the river, but you get a lot of fire by doing that. So this map is very interesting to move around and get cover and avoid the lava. It's a very cool boss fight.
Yeah, let's take a look. Everyone can see a sneak peek down in the right corner there of the dragon that Nick has set up. Look at this thing. It's so big. We had to zoom so far out. But then you get that scale. I think we did nail that scale in that image. I think it's perfect. But yeah, I love the look of the texture on that dragon is amazing.
So this is actually a 3D print that I requested to get printed just to show off to you
Oh,
guys that
really?
it's there. Yep, we
So
do
it'll be
not
even
have.
better.
Yeah, we don't even have it because it's Traditional Scout by Remy Tremblay. He's actually in the chat with us.
Hey.
So yeah, it's amazing work that he did. It looks really, really good. Fit the brief we sent him. 10 out of 10. He also sculpted the Elders here. That one looks very amazing from the core
Oh,
box.
yeah. Cool. Yeah, so that is, like I said earlier, if you've been in the comments crossing your fingers for some really extra cool minis, I I hope you agree that we've come through in spades with this box. Not to mention what sounds like a really, really cool quest. And like we said earlier, this is the final expansion for this campaign, which brings us to what I think almost everyone is waiting for, and that is to talk about, or at least give you a glimpse at the all-in pledges. Let's look at the first one, which is the Dragon's Hoard. This is effectively all the boxes that you saw in that trailer we ran, including this most recent one. You can see there in the center, the Sunken Temple being a crowdfunding exclusive. But this represents, we didn't pull all the pieces out for this image because it would have just been ridiculously overwhelming. But these are all the boxes that are included in the all-in pledge. Not to mention, don't forget, the other option for all-in is to add to this the 5e compatible books set that we have, which is the next slide. The Adventurer's Hoard includes everything that you just saw, plus that nice set of books for the 5e campaign and bestiary if you want to take Massive Darkness to sort of the next level if you're a 5e fan. We have all of these details that are going to be added to the campaign page very, very soon after this. You can find out all about the pricing. You can see all of the details about what's included. Of course, you can reference all of the various boxes that we've added to the campaign to see what's included. And of course, again, if you're a returning backer, you're going to have the opportunity to have that fire giant along with this, as well as I think you can add that on to your pledge, right? The fire giant. Is that true? Yes.
Yep.
So with that, we wanted to take some questions on this last live stream. We have had someone in the background tagging some questions. And I'm just going to read these without having vetted them. So we'll do what we can here, Marco and Nick. Jason Voorhees. I'm guessing it's not the Jason Voorhees, but maybe that's just a screen name. So today I'm guessing will be the last add-on and all-in pledge. Any predictions? Third campaign box or something different? Well, this is something someone was just guessing early on. So hopefully we've answered that already. You've seen everything that we have. Can we get an option? Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Nick, do you have a question?
I saw a few questions about crossover pack working with Black Plague and Green Horde. So the spawn cards are built for White Death, but you can just use the White Death spawn rules, and you can still play in your Black Plague or Green Horde games. So we kind of designed it that way, so you could use it for both White Death and the Green Horde series. And also, I saw a couple of questions about including door cards for the false doors. So some of you are wondering, how does it work with the 3D doors? So we did think about putting door cards, but then you'll be drawing a deck for your doors, and then you're drawing a deck for your false mimic. So you're drawing 2 decks now. So it's not really that kind of like friendly for the user experience. So we suggest just shuffling the tokens face down and just flip them up accordingly when you open the door.
There's a question here from M. Jordan. So is this something you can play as you have to play as a campaign, or can you run it as a one-off? I assume both.
No, it's just a one-off. It's just one quest. So
yeah.
Usually when we have a campaign, we have a lot of quests in sequence, but this one is just one epic quest that you play. That's, of course, it's a bit longer than usual, but it's like a one-shot quest that you fight the dragon.
Let's see some other questions here. So I'd like to know if the Underspire is required to play the dragon set, with it being 2-part.
No, you only need the core box. You can only go up to 5. the regular one-shot groups.
Ooh, I have to say I agree with Peter Wise. Peter Wise asked, or actually, I don't know if this is a question or maybe a demand. Marco, please add a door card for the false door into the box so that those of us with 3 doors can spawn them. Well, is that what you'd already mentioned, Nick?
Yep.
Yeah, I do think it would be interesting. I may be causing problems here. I won't be invited back. If there are door cards that in some way relate to this, would be really, really cool.
Yeah, I think for the 3D doors, what you can do, we have this token set aside, and when you open a door, you randomly choose one of the tokens, and you see if it's a mimic or not, if it's a false door or not. You know, there's a way to use the tokens to play, even if you're using 3D terrain. You know.
And the last one I want to mention, Nick, if you have another one, you can jump in. But the last one, this isn't a question at all, but just another hopeful fan saying Marco is not one of the miniatures yet. So I think the big question on all of our minds today with Marco and his glorious flowing hair, which someone else in the comments pointed out, with the miniature, I want to know what his hair will look like in the miniature. Will it be flowing in the wind? Will it just be draped down over his shoulders? Let us know in the comments what you think, what the Marco miniature could look like. And I want to be clear, there is no Marco miniature in this campaign. But if we consider in the future, we have to make these, we have to answer these questions. Nick, was there anything else that you wanted to answer?
Yes, saw some questions popping out, the RPG available as PDFs. This one I'm not very sure, so I'll have to check, and I'll probably reply on the Kickstarter page itself, Game Found page itself. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think we're always willing to consider stuff like that, try to make it happen if possible. There's another question here that I think is always on every Massive Darkness fan's mind, from Loredana. Can we expect more Massive Darkness releases for the future? I don't even mean a new campaign, which would be cool, but also retail boxes. I think to just answer that general first question, I think we can safely say, yeah, I would think there will be more Massive Darkness. As long as y'all want Massive Darkness, I think we're willing to oblige. And I can tell you, as a fan myself, and now that I've gotten a peek behind the curtain, there's a lot to be excited about what's coming from CMON. I'll leave you with that tease. Nick, anything else? Marco?
There's a question about exclusive weapons. So when we made this new Dungeons of Shadowreach core set, we wanted to make it fully compatible with everything. So our new direction for the sets was to make them generic, so that every class we made in the past and we're making in the future are compatible with every set. So that's why they are generic weapons that any class can use. And when you get the set, you get the power, you have this power that everyone has the same power. In the case of the Red Dragon set, it's a cool power that makes you ignite the fire that are on the enemies instantly instead of waiting until the end of the round. So all sets now have this awesome power that everyone can get access to.
Cool. Here's a question I hesitate to ask, Marco, because it's probably something we've been asked before in past campaigns. But Francesco asked, have you ever considered a way to create a random adventure in this system? Or does the system even lend itself to something like that?
Yeah, so of course we thought about that, but it's harder than you would think. So maybe in the future a specific expansion, but for the regular content that we have in the core box, we thought that having the specific quests tailored for a good experience was better than like randomly generated ones.
Yeah, I mean, you can always just try, but it probably won't play through as well as the quests that we've built. And I have to say, with the trends that we've seen, where the quests are going to be with including more flavor and more theme, it is harder to balance, particularly when we're going in that direction with randomness. But we'll keep at it. Maybe we'll come up with something. Nick, anything else? Marco, any other questions before we sign off? Well, again, I just want to thank you, everyone, for joining us on this journey for this entire campaign and all of these live streams. So happy that you tuned in to watch us talk about everything going on with the game. This last one is particularly special, like I said, as we're moving into the last 2 days of the campaign. We will have the all-ins up on the campaign page very soon. So you'll have everything you need to know about making your final decision about getting in on Massive Darkness Dungeons of Shadowreach. If you have any questions, though, as always, get in those comments on the campaign page and we'll get in there and try to answer whatever we can. And once again, before we sign off, we're going to show you that little trailer that we showed you earlier, and we'll see you later.